Good morning. Today is Monday, July 6th, and we will be looking at the chapter 8 in the Gospel of Mark. I'm in a different setting. I'm at my brother's house in Orlando. We came up here to visit them, sheltering at home from home to home. Just to start out, chapter 8 is almost verbatim taken from what we saw in Matthew. So Matthew, obviously we know Mark was first, so Matthew took it from Mark, and it's the same similar order of things and things happening. Starts out with the second feeding miracle, the feeding of the 4,000, which is in place for an example when he talks about yeast and being aware of a certain kind of yeast that pervades through the bread. And then the disciples say, well, you say that because we don't have any bread? And Jesus says, didn't you just see, like, why are you worried about not having enough bread? He includes, in Mark's gospel, includes Herod with the Pharisees in that yeast conversation, a warning, I guess, that he makes. And this time, when the disciples demand, in Matthew, the disciples demanded for a sign, but in Mark, it's the Pharisees that have a demand for a sign. It almost seems like they're doing that to trip him up. And then, in this chapter, Jesus has a healing. This is not in Matthew, and it's a healing of the blind man at Bethsaida. And the people bring the blind man to him. So he puts spit on the man's eyes and laid his hands on him. And then Jesus says, well, what can you see? And the man says, I see people that look like trees walking. So, I mean, okay, he sees something, but it's not quite the miracle that was expected. So Jesus tries again. He puts his hands on him another time again, and then the man's sight is fully restored. And it's a mysterious miracle. Why does Jesus need to try it again? Like, why does it have to, why is this like pointed out here? There's a lot of things where it just glibly says, he did lots of healings and miracles. And just doesn't give you the details, but we get the details here at this Bethsaida scene. And so I think, to me, at least when I read it, it makes Jesus more approachable. Like, as a healer and as a person, he's not only concerned about a miracle happening. I mean, just to begin with, the fact that he could heal this guy's eyes, miracle. Like, he could even see the people, but his sight wasn't fully restored. So Jesus tries again. I love it. I love the approachableness of the kind of healer I would imagine Jesus to be, saying to the man, how did it work? Did it go okay? Yeah, I see people, but they look kind of like trees. There's no definition here. And so Jesus said, let me try again. And just puts his hands on his eyes, tries again. I love that. The next two things that happen in this chapter that round it out until we get into 9 are Peter's declaration of Jesus, which is the same thing we saw in Matthew, where they're in Caesarea Philippi, and Jesus puts the question to them, who do people say that I am? And they say, oh, people say this and this and this. And Peter answered him, you are the Messiah. And then, as is the custom in the Gospel of Mark with the Messianic secret, he sternly ordered them not to tell anyone about him. Same thing in Matthew. We see the same almost verbatim language and dialogue there between Peter and Jesus. So then, after that, Jesus foretells his death and resurrection. This is the first time in Mark's gospel that Jesus does this. And we see him call the crowd with the disciples and said to them, if anyone becomes my follower, let them deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. So this is part of what we read during Lent, that we, in order to follow Jesus to the next thing, we have to take some of the stuff some of the people that we're following or following ourselves and put that aside. Deny themselves, say, and take up their cross and follow. So that is, it is the same verbatim from the Gospel of Matthew. Very good theology about how we need to lay aside the things of self and self-interest, and even the things that say that our self is a bad entity entirely, some of that self-hatred, and to lay that all aside, to deny it. Deny the bad, deny the good, deny all the stuff that have me. I need to be first. I need to be right. I need to be recognized. I need to be this. To lay that aside and take up our cross to take up the symbol of what it means to humiliate oneself, to be in a humble position and follow Jesus. It says a tall order. That's what our Lord asks of us. I hope you have a wonderful day.